I'm Rantasmo, and we
are the crystal gems. We'll always say.
I've truly never come across a cartoon quite like Steven Universe. It is in many ways a very challenging show, and I mean that in a way that's much less backhanded than it sounds. Your outfit is so challenging. The show is about a boy named Steven who's raised by 3 members of an alien race called Gems. Steven is half Gem, and we eventually learn that his guardians are part of a faction called the Crystal Gems who have rebelled against their homeworld, and then things start getting sort of complicated. Steven Universe has some of the most complex lore that I've ever seen in a cartoon for kids, but it communicates that lore in a way that feels effortless, because at its heart, the show is pure emotion. From the very first episode, it doesn't feel the need to bore you with a big info dump about the origin of the Crystal Gems, or the history of the Gem War, or even what gems are, because none of those things are more important than what the show is really about. Love, community, family, friendship, cool magic weapons. The cartoon also challenges convention by deftly handling topics that you rarely see explored on shows made for kids. Things like consent, abusive relationships, and body positivity. And what's of particular interest to me is the existence of explicitly, unambiguously, flagrantly queer characters. Not just strongly hinted at and confirmed by the creators later. Explicitly queer characters in a children's animated series. That doesn't happen. That never happens. And yet, somehow against all known laws of physics, it has happened. It's like there's been a tear in the fabric of reality or something. That was weird. Well, anyway. If you want to get pedantic, and based on my experience with YouTube commenters, many of you do, gems don't really have the same concept of gender that humans do. Even creator Rebecca Sugar has said that gems aren't really female or male, they're just gems. So in that very pedantic, nerdy, killjoy way, no, gems are not technically women, so gems who are in love with other gems are not technically women who are in love with other women. However, seeing as all of the gems visually present as women, are voiced by women, use she, her pronouns, and are on occasion and without objection referred to as women, this is really a distinction without a difference.
A giant woman.
Even if the show never actually uses words like lesbian, the gems are so strongly coded as queer women that I'm not sure it can even be called subtext. One of the show's central and most popular conventions is the idea of fusion. Groups of 2 or more gems are able to merge their minds and bodies into a single, even more powerful entity. And this fusion works best when the individuals involved share a deep emotional bond. At the end of the first season, the de facto leader of the Crystal Gems, Garnet, is revealed to be a fusion of 2 other gems, Ruby and Sapphire. And it's been made abundantly clear at this point that the relationship between the 2 of them is a romantic one.
Just look at the ball.
I'm trying, but all I want to look at is you.
Don't worry. You can look at me when you're running for home.
I find that most LGBT representation falls into one of 2 different categories. There's what many refer to as no big deal representation, where a character's identity is acknowledged, but highly destigmatized within the context of the world or the narrative, to the point where the character could just as easily have been written as straight or cisgender. And then there's representation where a character's identity is an important aspect of their narrative, often used to explore the unique challenges that people in that community face or have faced in the real world. My personal opinion is that neither of these types of representation is really inherently better than the other. No big deal representation is often a safer choice for not acknowledging the uncomfortable realities of being LGBT. But I also think there's value in depicting worlds where being LGBT isn't a big deal. Ideally, our media landscape should have a mix of both types of representation, and Garnet kind of manages to encompass both of them at once. Steven and the other Crystal Gems never really bat an eye at the fact that Ruby and Sapphire are gay for each other. But at the same time, the stigma of their relationship is the driving force behind Garnet's rebellion against the Gem homeworld, where fusion between different types of gems is highly taboo.
They'd never seen fusion of 2 different types of gems. Unbelievable. Disgusting. This is unheard of.
I also love that the show doesn't feel the need to frame all queer people as beacons of purity and goodness, who are completely without flaw or complexity. Ruby and Sapphire argue just like any other couple. And Pearl's complex feelings surrounding Rose Quartz make for some incredibly strong and relatable conflict. Many of Steven Universe's fans tend to see fusion as a metaphor for sex, which is understandable. The dance that gems do in order to fuse often has some not so subtle sexual undertones, and when gems are forced to fuse against their will, it's easy to see some parallels with sexual violence. But I don't think that fusion and sexual intercourse are perfectly interchangeable. I see it as more representative of emotional connections in a broader sense. Steven eventually learns that he's able to fuse with his best friend and potential love interest, Connie, and the two of them form the androgynous Stevani. Unlike Garnet, Stevani uses they-them pronouns and is generally regarded as being non-binary. Steven is also able to fuse with one of his guardians, Amethyst, and the two of them form another androgynous persona, Smoky Quartz. Non-binary fusion characters are just one of the ways in which the show explores the concept of gender nonconformity. Steven himself often exhibits behavior that you don't often see in male characters. He has fun performing in drag, his powers are rooted in traditionally feminine things like healing and protection, he cries so much. The diversity in the ways that the gems present themselves shows that there are so many different ways to be. Whether you're prim and proper, slobbish and impulsive, butch, femme, or anything in between, none of that hinders you from being awesome. And even on top of all of that, the show incorporates some really choice nuggets of LGBT culture. Death drops, Utena, and just when you think things couldn't possibly get any gayer, boom, literally Patti LuPone.
Are you questioning my authority?
I think it's so great that there's a show out there for kids that unequivocally validates queer people and gender nonconformity. But the truth is that having just one show like that isn't enough. It's not even close to enough. Which is why I really hope that Steven Universe is the start of something revolutionary in children's television. I mean, who knows? Maybe this will really open things up to an entirely new world of Whoa, this is different. And so is this. Am I some sort of self-insert character? Oh, I guess I'm probably supposed to summon a weapon or something. Like this? Wow, okay, that's helpful. Hey there, corrupted gem monster. Do you think that you might represent the loss of identity that comes from being absorbed into a toxic environment and the elusive but ever-present possibility of redemption?
I'm not sure. I guess it's something I kind of need to think about.
Bye!